Well, hey folks, welcome along. This is going to be my Saga rulebook review. So I finally got a chance to actually do the Saga rulebook. I've been playing a few games of it, so I've actually can tell you a bit about it with having some idea on what's actually being done. I'm going to just go through it bit by bit and hopefully just show you a couple of images from it. Obviously I can't show you it all because it's Griffin Beast property, but I will go through. Been really enjoying it. I've got a couple of battle reports to come up, and I've got a tournament coming up on the 27th of May, I believe it is. It's only going to be a 4-pointer. It's basically just give players the chance to get into the game and learn what it's all about. In the meantime, I've still been painting stuff. I mean, don't know how well these will come up, but I've got some Norman infantry here. Yeah, this is a bit too much for that one, I think. And of course the cavalry version as well. I've been quite enjoying the idea of using the Lord of the Rings more for some Dark Age rules in some other games for a smaller skirmish. Other than that, just various projects. I've got my Lord of the Rings projects on as well, so I've been keeping myself busy with painting and that, and so hopefully I'll get back into the routine of doing some battle reports. I'm not going to go in detail over the rules. Obviously, I do my battle reports, so you can kind of pick up how the game is played during them. I tend to go over it during them anyway. So I'm just going to go over the basic changes from the first one to the second one. Is it the same game? Yes and no. So yes, it's all got all the same principles you know from the other ones. So you've got your battle board, you've got your measuring sticks, you've got how your units are broken down, Saga dice, you know, all the main parts are there from the original. But I say no because they've made a lot of little changes, and this does make the game play, in my opinion, a lot easier. I know there's some people already online questioning some of the abilities that are on there, and you know, some of the things they've changed, but so far we've been happy with it. Me and my club, we've got more players now than we have had for a long while playing Saga, so that's always a good sign. So going through this book does look good as well. I mean, it's only a soft book, but I think it's like £10 or something. What's in this is the rules to play the game. So this doesn't include any of your battle boards or anything like that. They're each going to come out on their own expansion. I've already got the Viking one. I'll do a quick review over the Viking one as well. So I think this is about 10 quid, and I think the expansions is about 30 quid each. So they're not too bad. And I say the expansion gives you all the battle boards of that period, which kind of works out because I think most of us ended up buying them all anyway. If you like going to tournaments, you need a rough idea on what everyone else is doing, so the best way to do it is to buy the other battle boards and see what they can do. So just flicking through this, we have let's have a look, nice index here going through. Yep. So the basics. The basics are pretty much all the same. There's heroes, health guards, warriors and levies, all as you remember it, and how the characteristics work exactly the same. So armour is what you have to hit them on, so that all stays the same. Units still between 4 and 12 figures, formations still the same, and there's, you know, sizes of bases, which they didn't really have in the first one. I know the errata did it and kind of gave it to stop the people trying to put cavalry on like a little 20mm base, because there was also an advantage obviously in combat that you could get more in, but that's gone now because combat basically is the two units that are in the combat both get to fight, so the idea of having a measurement around that doesn't matter. The turn sequence is still the same, measurements are still the same. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. So getting into the orders phase, so we start looking at using our Saga dice. A couple of changes here for sure. I'm sure I'll miss some things here. It's only what I've been picking up in the games play. It used to be that if you have dice on your Saga battle board, you can't roll those dice when you generate Saga. They basically cancel out. So if you generate 5 Saga dice, you've got 1 on your board, you can only roll 4. That's now gone, and this really works a lot better. You can actually build up your Saga board, because you've already got a limited amount of dice anyway, and there's no real reason to keep them on, I found. But now, if you've got say 2 abilities each with a dice on, and you generate 5 Saga dice, you can still roll 5 dice and keep those on there. The only thing you can't do now is you can't build up an ability. So if you've got an ability, so look in this one, you've got Odin here, which takes 2 of the commons. you can't put one common dice on it and then wait for like the next orders phase to add another common dice. You've got to, if you want the ability down, you've got to be able to play the ability, so you need the 2 dice on it. But other than that, having the battle board is fantastic. There's also no limit to how many dice you can roll. So obviously up to your 8, you still your limit of 8 dice. But I believe it's 6 in the previous one, which I'm glad again they got rid of. It was making the dice more useful, able us to do more things with the dice. Generating Saga dice, that's changed a little bit as well. Warlords used to generate 2, now they only generate 1. On the upside, Levy now generate 1, but there is limits on how many figures are in it. This is going to be stopping the one-man warrior unit running around and keeping Saga dice in for players. So Hearthguard generates Saga dice no matter how many. Warlord generates the Saga dice, and then you've got warriors in 4 figures, has to be at least 4 to generate Saga dice, and then Levy of 6. And I'm really pleased with that change. I think that's a great idea. Just mentions Warren Saga dice. So other than that, pretty much how abilities are triggered. We'll go a bit over that in a minute. All kind of works. So into the activation phase, and I say there's some great, can you see these pictures? There's some great stuff in here, and you can definitely tell. You can see they're coming out with the fantasy stuff. There's some quality cobblestone in there, and I think that's. I was going to say Mantic, no, I think that's Wargames Factory, their old skeletons. I've got a set of those skeletons. It's a shame you can't get them anymore. They were very Jason and the Argonauts. I thought they looked great. Let's have a quick flick through here. And there's some guy, I've seen some of his, I think it's on a blog or something. Some honestly not Game of Thrones in here. There we go. That's a couple of honestly not Starks down the bottom here. So yeah, as you can see, loads of pictures, loads of diagrams in this as well, explaining how things work. So I'll say the activation phase, we gained a new activation. We now have charge. It's now a separate activation to the move activation. It used to be you just move into combat, it was a charge. Now charge is a separate thing. And this becomes important as well with the battle boards, because the battle boards are now limited to some, which used to give a free move, might now only give a free move or a free charge. So if you get a free move, you can't go into combat with it, which also got rid of some of the extra writing needed. So if you get the free move but can't go into combat, that's now gone. You just get free move. So that's helped that. I think that's a good idea. Movement is a bit more, how to say gimmicky now. You've got to move in straight lines. And have to move into a certain way. It's how it's worded. It seems overly complicated and stuff, and not badly. It's obviously to explain the rules, but once you start playing this, it becomes second nature anyway. So it's not a big issue. Cavalry now can only charge their full in a straight line, which is interesting. So you can now have a way of kind of blocking off cavalry, which is... I have to play more cav first to see how this works. I could see it's getting quite irritating quite quick. Mainly because I thought cavalry got a bit boned in the last one, where they struggled a lot in getting into terrain and stuff. And people would sit in terrain, you're relatively safe. But then again, we didn't fight the 12 Hearthguard unit cavalry that smashed everything. But that will change as well, but I'll explain that later. So, yes, if they just do a move action, they can do 2 mediums, cavalry this is. So you get 2 6-inch moves to make up your 12, or if you charge, you've got to charge in a straight line. And then we have manoeuvres. Really like this. Manoeuvres, basically, if you're over 12 away from the enemy, you get a free move activation. Though you can't come within 12. So basically you can start bringing up other troops, which again is reducing the amount of dice you need to actually move troops. And one thing I would say is a lot of the abilities I've noticed now activate troops. Because I say, with the Welsh board I had originally, I think I was using my movement and that, but I was using like 1 or 2 abilities on the Welsh board. In the last game I had, I think I used all but 1. So the abilities are just useful, because they allow you to move and stuff as well. You're not wasting dice on either choosing, oh, do I have to move them or am I going to do this? It kind of combines. And then you get this manoeuvres, which allows you to move troops up from the back, which again gives you access to more dice, to be able to use more abilities, basically making the battle board far more interesting. it's got a bit on charging here, how to charge and whatnot. I do apologise, my screen has just gone blank, so I've probably gone into the pitch black here. There we go. Yeah, so let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. So charging is, as you see down there, not too bad. Again, you're limited to straight lines, so you can't charge around corners and that, but as you can see, you can get around it at everyone in the combat fights. So nice and simple. To be honest, a lot of us use that anyway. It was only really rare if someone had like a line of levy. See, I would miss that line of levy screening your troops, and you charge in from the flank. They're going to get naff all attacks, but to be honest, they're levies, so they're going to get naff all attacks anyway. There's nothing else I need to overly mention there. Shooting is pretty much the same as you remember it. Though javelins now, although they kind of work as they used to. It used to be you get to move and then shoot, always like a one activation. Now it's purely you move and then you get a free shooting activation. So they've actually pointed out it's like a separate activation. Doesn't generate fatigue, but this means, you know, shooting defences and whatnot may be able to be activated from other battle boards. Like it, that just explains things, make life easier. I will go into weapons in a minute because javelins do have another bonus which I really like as well. So shooting, yeah, I think is pretty much as one remembers it. Oh, we now have a dice pool limit as well, so you can generate the max of 8 dice to begin with, so that will double to 16 with your Saga abilities. And you might think, oh, 8 dice, I mean, that's hard to get anyway. It's 8 Hearthguard, but I think this is just to stop those 12 Hearthguard units with javelins running around peppering units, which I don't have a huge problem with because I didn't see it massively. And then we're on to melee. And that's pretty much the same. Again, we've got another limit here. 16 attacks is the limit here to start with it, including bonus attacks, which is quite interesting because it's now some of the Saga abilities I've noticed have got bonus attack. So this counts towards your bonus attack. The Welsh have one where you get a bonus attack equal to the amount of attacks you would have had for shooting. So if I've got an 8 Hearthguard unit who has 16 attacks, I wouldn't get any extra attacks, because that's my limit to start with. But then after that, using other Saga abilities, you can boost it, which is quite interesting that you've now got the separation of bonus and other Saga abilities. So look, the use of Saga abilities, I should mention as well, it's alternating. It used to be Attacker goes in, uses his stuff, Defender goes in and then uses their stuff. Now it's the attacker uses an ability, Defender gets to use an ability, then it goes back to the attacker, and it's to and fro, and spending fatigue is part of that. So you can slowly see what's being spent and whether you want to spend more abilities. You don't have to take the gamble, just using 1 or 2, and then the opponent uses all of his and you can't get anything through. So I quite like that. There is, used to be able to go defensive, now they've got something called closed ranks. Only one thing I'd mention about closed ranks is that the Anglo-Saxons have a Saga ability called closed ranks. I don't know why you'd need the 2 names to have 2 different things. I'd rather the Saga ability was just called something different, you know. But that's only a minor thing. But what this now does is gives you +1 defense from memory. Counts being in solid cover. Yes, so you get the save on 4s instead of 5s in combat. It used to be lose half your attacks and you gain defense dice. This one is, yeah, you lose half. I think it's half the attacks again. It took me ages to find this. I'm glad someone mentioned it on my commented in one of my videos about it. Let's quick look because it's written and done. Yes, so it's got half the attacks running up, and then you can save on 4s, which is interesting. I think everything else is pretty much the same there. I don't really need to go over everything. Fatigue, that's changed a tad. Everything can only take 3 fatigue max and it's exhausted. Exhausted units can't gain any more fatigue, so you can't over-exhaust them and make them take longer to take it down, which I believe you could in the previous one. So if you had like a Hearthguard which take 4, you can get some abilities on it and get 5 or 6, you know there's going to be 2 turns of it not doing anything. So you can't do that now, but there is... yeah, so you're all limited to 3, and then it stays, and then you can only rest as your actions after that. Spending fatigue's pretty much the same, except, let's see, another except. There's no limit to it. It used to be that you'd spend a fatigue to, say, drop their armour by 1, and then that's the best you could do, and then raise your armour. But now you can actually drop their armour by 2. It's down to the minimum of a 2-up save, and block yours up to a 6-up save, which is quite interesting. That gives just a few more options to it. You can also spend 2 fatigue to cancel an activation. Because you used to be able to spend 1 fatigue to slow them down for a move like a charge action. You can actually spend 2 fatigue going to completely cancel an activation. So that's quite interesting as well. Okay, how are we doing? Going through special rules. Let's have a quick look. A lot of this is how we remember it. Okay, resilience. Oh, that's one I should cover. Oh, and also, what's the other one? Side by side is gone. There's no dual charging anymore. That's gone altogether. Because it used to be something no one could do apart from a warlord and somebody, and then it just made the combats just a bit complicated. You're limited to put like half on the warlord and stuff. So now they've just, got rid of that, which is absolutely fine. So the warlords are a bit stronger now. They've got 8 attack dice, and they have resilience. And resilience is you basically can spend fatigue to block hits, which is I don't have a problem with this. So you can take 3 hits with a warlord. The other thing you have to be careful of is bodyguards. It used to be warriors and Hearthguard could block hits. Now it's only the Hearthguard, so that makes a very expensive body bag if you need it. Equipment. I don't know. The later medieval period stuff here. The yeah, I like this stuff. It looks good. Most of it's exactly the same as we remember. Some other stuff has come into it. I don't think like improvised projectiles was in it, but that's now in it, which I think was like a monk special rule or something like that. Crossbows are as you remember it. So javelins. Javelins are the big ones that change. Makes a good thing for me because I obviously have a Breton warband and I have a Cornish Welsh warband. And so this was actually very interesting. And what it basically does is it reduces your armour in combat. Which you might think, ah, crap. But on the turn that you charge, you actually get +1 to your... that's right, I was reading crossbows then. It's a +1 to my shooting. I thought, oh, that's awesome. +1 to your attack dice when you charge. So you actually drop the enemy's, effectively drop the enemy's armor by 1 when you charge in. So it makes javelin units now really quite aggressive and kind of crap on the defense, which I think actually works better on how javelin units should be working. Because javelins really... It wasn't so much as a skirmishy kind of weapon. It was also used as kind of a shock and awe weapon. As you would charge in, you would throw whatever you can, and then go to your spear. And of course, the poor people receiving the javelins were dodging and stuff, so that you then get the impact of the infantry after that. So I think that is represented much better now, and then just the move and charge of previous. Because the problem with the shooting is, even if you've got a 12-man warrior unit, you're only getting what, 6 shots. Is that right? Yeah, it's 1 per 2, isn't it? And then half of them are saved because you get a 4-up defense roll. So shooting really only plinks away. It doesn't do serious damage, and that made I thought it made the Welsh warband struggle somewhat unless you do the 12-man Hearthguard unit, which has now been has been blocked. So yeah, happy with the javelins. And then we just go, it just goes through some SAGA abilities. And now here we go, there's another, I've seen this before, I don't know whose blog it was, I did have a look. I believe this was his Flayed, Banner the Flayed, the pink guys there are, what are they called, the Boltons, aren't they? And yeah, Lannisters at the top. Great stuff. Other than that, oh no, not quite. One slight downer. We only have one scenario, okay? It's not too bad. It's basically, what did you call it? Clash of Warlords? Yeah, Clash of Warlords. Same as the original one. Points system works kind of different at the end. You get bonus points for actually wiping out units, which I really like. So I always felt, you get that extra bonus for killing that little poxy 1-man unit running around the back there. We did have a go at there's like a random special rules here. I can't see too much, but just some interesting things: Cursed Ground and Old Grudges and Judgment Slaughter. I had a go at one of these. It was the time I I was trying out my Welsh, and I thought, oh, I'll stick loads of train down. Train works in a similar way, similar way to it has done before, but we got the cursed ground, which makes all uneven terrain dangerous terrain. And dangerous terrain is basically similar to what cavalry used to suffer from. You gain fatigue when you go in it. So obviously cavalry gain 2 fatigue, I believe, for going in dangerous terrain. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is. It has a nice glossary. I thought this was good. It's got a good little glossary at the back there. You can kind of see it. The only thing is, see, I looked this up, so I thought, this closed ranks thing. Closed ranks, and this is what it has here, by the way. An option for the defender has during hand-to-hand combat where they lose attack dice in order to more easily cancel enemy hits, which was great, except it didn't tell me how many dice I lost. And then I was trying to find it, and then it was like in the bottom of like one of the pages, and I was like, oh, God's sakes, because it mentions closed ranks in the combat phase, but what you lose is mentioned later on, and it took me ages to come across it. And thanks for the chap who actually found it for me. But other than that, the book itself, for a tenner, is a fantastic book. Obviously, it doesn't do much for a tenner. It is just a set of rules, but all the appendices. It's the expansion. Sorry, all the expansions that will now be added to this will make it far more interesting. Though the only thing I don't like the sound of this is going to come from me from a bit of a Frostgrave mentality here. I did notice, I think it was on the Grip and Beast site, there's like a page where he explains what they're going to be doing with the rules. And one of them said the rules for the armies themselves are balanced in their book. So the Viking expansion, all the armies in it are balanced for the Viking expansion. Great. But they're not balanced against the other expansions, which I know is a lot harder to do. I completely understand that, because I'm sure they're going to be using different abilities, and obviously when the fantasy comes out, you could be having magic. But I think for a tournament, because I mean, I'm stuck down here in Cornwall, I don't go to a huge amount of tournaments, but I think the tournament scene, because it boosted this up so well, it's quite an important thing to keep going. You'll probably end up being limited to a period. And I know some people will be grateful for that because they're fed up with seeing the Crusaders smash everything, and with the other ones not being so strong. But to be honest, I quite like the fact that you can mix and match, and people don't have to have multiple collections, and can bring them along. It reminds me of like DBA tournaments that are often run. They're this period, and I understand completely why you're doing it, but it means like I might not be able to go because I have nothing from that period unless I go mad and start spending out and having multiple DBA armies. I mentioned Frostgrave because they brought out, obviously, the Frostgrave Archipelago. And they weren't, it's even though it's in the same setting and it's the same kind of rule system, they don't actually combine. Which is a damn shame, because I love the idea of taking the wizards across there, or taking the heroes back, and you got like 2 settings there, which would be really nice just to expand Frostgrave at the very limit of it. Just grab the books, use that in your Frostgrave, and expand it. But I say version 2 of Frostgrave's coming out this year, so hopefully we'll see some of that. But at the end of the day, Saga rulebook for 10 quid. I don't think you can go wrong. It's a great set of rules. You need what? Minimum of 25 models, and then up to, it's me doing maths here, 73, isn't it? So, it's not a big model count. It's played on a 3-foot by 4-foot board. The rules are pretty basic. It's nothing I've ever seen that's overly complicated in this that does my head in. That's one of the reasons I really enjoy it. The rules are pretty basic, but it's definitely a tricky one to get good at. It's hard to master, so to say. But these rules have been well worth redoing. They've taken what they've learnt in the errata and stuck it into this, and yes, it feels like a good book. Overall, well worth the pennies. Hopefully that kind of explains the changes and stuff of what I can remember and how I'm going through it. But the game itself, have a look at my battle reports just to see how it's played, and I shall do the Viking expansion and just show you what you get in that at a later date. So thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully I shall see you soon. Farewell.